Okay, let's do some examples. Pen. All right, it says Fadil and Luke have gift cards to their favorite diner. Fadil starts with $50 on his card. He spends $4.50 each day. The graph shows the amount Luke starts with on his card. The graph is over here. And the amount he has remaining every 2 days. Who has more money left on his card between day 0 and day 4? So because we are comparing a bunch of values, we have 2 people and also number of days, I would make a table. So we're going to have number of days. That's going to be our X value. Then we'll have the money left on Fadil's card. And then we'll have the money left on Luke's card. It's asking us to compare 0 and 4 days. And I'm going to leave myself some space in the middle to work out my process. Okay. So at day 0 is how much money they start with on their card. Fadil starts with 50. From the description. And Luke starts with 40, and we can see that from the y-intercept on the graph. Okay. For Fadil, we know he spends $4.50 each day, and I'm changing by 4 days. So I'm going to subtract $4.50 each day times 4 days. Is subtracting $18. So I'm going to do 50 minus 18. At day 4, Fadil has $32. So this space is just my process and giving myself room to work. All right, then for Luke's, I'm going to have to find the slope. Because day 4 right here, not an exact point, right? And we never just guess where a point is. We want to find out. So I'm going to find the slope. I'm going to use 2 exact points, which are here at the y-intercept and here. And draw my little triangle. Pay attention that each box is worth 5. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So minus 30. And then over, these boxes are worth 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So Luke's slope is negative 30 over 10, which is negative 3. So minus 3. Just grabbing something out of my bag real quick. All right, so for Luke's day 4, I need to subtract $3 per day times 4 days is minus $12. 40 minus 12 is 28. So who has more money left on their card between those 2 days? Fadil. Okay. Let's write that. So Fadil has more money left. Okay, looking at the graph, we're going to answer some questions. Select all the correct answers. Okay, if we were to graph it on the same grid, okay, which ones are true? Okay. All right, so it says the graph of Fadil's function is steeper than Luke's because the absolute value of negative $4.50 is greater than the absolute value of negative 3. All right, and that part is true that the this part, the absolute value of 450 is greater than the absolute value of -3. But we have to pay attention to the rest of the statement, okay? So, yes, Fadil's is the 450 number, and that tracks. So his graph would be steeper. So A would be true. All right, Fadil's card has a greater initial value than Luke's card. Also true. Fadil starts with 50, Luke starts with 40. All right, both functions are decreasing. They both have a negative slope. That is true. Right, the money on their card is going down. All right, then each day, Fadil spends more of his card's money than Luke does. So we have to think, so yes, who spends more money per day? Fadil does, right? He has a greater rate of change. And then there is a day when the cards have the same value greater than 0. And then that one would not be correct, right? Because what are these counting by? So here's 50. Fadil is decreasing by 450. So every 2 days, it's minus $9. Right? They're never gonna like line up. All right. So then, looking at the same problem, who spends all of the money on his gift card first, Fadil or Luke? So if I want my output, my Y value to be 0, I can substitute that in. Right, so if Y equals 50 minus 450x, and I want to know when my outcome is $0. Why won't it let me zoom in more? Let me shrink this guy. Okay. Let's go ahead and start solving. We'll subtract 50. So negative 50 equals negative 4.50x. Divide by negative 4.5. All right, and you get that 11.1 repeating equals the number of days, so about 11 days. And then we'll do the same with Luke. So, just check my colors. So Luke's equation is Y equals, we're starting at 40 minus, and we calculated that Luke spends $3 per day, so minus 3x. Subtract 40. Equals negative 3x. Divide by negative 3. 13.3 repeating. So the person who spends the gift card on their money first is the person who has the lowest number of days, which is Fadil.